All right, guys, welcome back. We are finally there. Class 4, Lesson 4, Forging the Blade. Make sure you go get any refreshers that you might need from the previous ones, but today we are using 1095 high carbon steel. We talked a little bit about it. It's great steel. And for that, we're looking for bright yellow. Just about here is the proper color range for forging 1095. Let's talk about forging the tip. Specifically avoiding crow's beak, where it folds over on itself and you get a crease in the center. A key technique to forging is hanging the material over the edge of your anvil so that as you forge it, it's pushing it down past that edge. The reason being is that helps prevent that crease in the center. Then you just pull it back a little bit more and flatten it on the face of the anvil. That will of course cause it to start to fold like this. So you lay it down flat and you continue to hammer, and that will flatten it out. You'll find that with forging, there's a lot of back and forth depending on what you're looking to accomplish. So make sure that you are consistent and symmetrical with your design. And keep your steel hot enough. Now here we're going to speed it up. As all we're doing is we'll hang it over the edge of the anvil, we'll hammer it down, we'll flatten it again, put it back in the forge, and we'll repeat that cycle enough times until that tip is forged. Now it really only takes a little bit of time in order to get you to where your blade is pretty much rough shaped, at least the tip of the blade. So as you go, play with the anvil, play with the hammer. Don't worry too much about powerful blows, but focus more on directing your blows to be accurate and controlled. Now here we're pretty close. So I'm gonna stretch the material out a little bit more. It's pretty wide for the blade I'm going for. So we keep laying it down, flattening out, bringing it back up and shaping it, and then laying it down and flattening it back out. It's a continual back and forth. Keep in mind as well the heat control like we talked about last time. Make sure it doesn't get too cold. If you hammer cold steel, you could cause stress fractures easily. Keep it nice and hot. Don't be afraid to take your time. There's a whole lot of new techniques in learning how the hammer feels. Each hammer will feel different, but just take your time. Learn to use your anvil to your advantage. Now, other than the bevels, we've pretty much rough shaped the blade, so let's move over to the tang. We're going to be doing a full tang. Remember, full tang is a very strong, very durable, usually easily balanced type of blade. So as you see here, all I did to do that is I laid it down flat, nice and in the center of the anvil, and I started hammering in that spot where I want the blade to transition into the handle. Now here, I'm actually hot cutting it because I have the basic shape of the handle done. So you can use a chisel, you could use a miter saw, you could use an angle iron, whatever you need to do. Don't worry about going all the way through if you're hot cutting. Just give it a nice crease, bend it back and forth, it'll pop right off. Now we're ready to continue forging that tang. So flip it around and hold it by the blade and just keep focusing your blows so that they are accurate and they are controlled. You don't want it to go wild where you start messing up and ruining your work. Now let's focus in here. That transition from the blade, the ricasso, into the handle is an important area. And the more you focus on developing your ability to forge, the better your products will come out. So try to do as much with the hammer as you can. You could use a cross peen or a straight peen kind of hammer like we talked about before, but really learn how to dial it in. Now, it's a very simple design. It's pretty much done with the handle, so let's switch to forging the bevels. The bevels are a key part of a knife. Lay it down and then angle it up just a little bit. That way, as you hammer, you not only put the bevels in on the hammer side, but also the anvil side. Every blow helps develop the bevels on both sides. Keep it symmetrical. A couple tips. If you hammer 4 times on one side, flip it over, do the same. Another tip, use the edge of the anvil to help establish the ricasso. A couple really precise blows, and you get some really clean lines. You don't have to do that though. For this blade, we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna make a really simple one. So you'll see I'm angling it up, and then I'm working my way down the blade as I hammer in those bevels. And then I flip it, and I do the same thing so that it's nice and even. Look at that bevel being forged in instead of grinding it out. But also notice how it curves back because we're pushing the material back. Easy fix. Lay it down on its spine and gently hammer nice hot steel so that straightens it out. That's one method. There's plenty of methods to keep the blade straight. That's just a really simple one. So let's get back to it. We heat it back up and we forge those bevels nice and thin so there's less grinding to do. Keeping it, again, as symmetrical as we can so we don't start developing twists and uneven surfaces. That'll make it so much easier, and you really learn how to control your hammer. Again, you'll see it curves back. Once again, it's super easy. Lay it on its spine and gently hammer the edge so that it flattens it out again. And this is going to help you have a really clean profile. Okay, now let's speed it up a little bit. Same thing, I'm working my way down the blade. The blade material is pushing out, so it's curving the blade. I lay it back down and I flatten it out, and it's a continual process. Again, focus on keeping it symmetrical and even, nice and clean. Don't hammer too hard, but instead focus on your control. The power, that will come. Focus on control and technique. Now take a look. It's pretty much done. Keep in mind, we're keeping it super simple so that we can learn how to do a basic blade. We'll do more complicated things later on, but here we go. That is the forging of the blade. We've got slight bevels. It's mostly forged. The profile is looking pretty clean to me. Of course, there's things we could fix about it, especially here towards the end of the tang, but don't worry about it. We're gonna get there. We're gonna move on to grinding next so we can clean up that profile. And in further classes and lessons, we'll do even more detail about how to really hone in your forging abilities. But that's about what you should be looking like for a nice, simple bushcraft blade. Let's go on to grinding.